So, Gerald, I realize I don't follow you on Instagram. Is it okay if I follow you?
Yes, you can. You can definitely follow me.
I'm just asking because I'm aware that some people like to keep their social and their work lives separate, completely separate. I do wonder, for these people, are they missing out on genuine connections with the people that they work with? You know, they spend a lot of time in the workplace. So, where do we draw the line? Welcome back to the Work It podcast. I am Nat, here with my co-host Gerald, and today we're going to break down some things that people are talking about online in this special Work Feed episode. Today, Gerald, we're going to be talking about this thread on Reddit from a couple weeks back, but it is very relevant to, I think, most people in the workplace. So we're going to talk about today the unwritten rules of Singaporean work culture.
Wow, that's such a good topic.
That's right. So this Redditor, he or she put into the thread, I'm a newbie in the corporate world in Singapore. I only had work experience doing remote work for my family business, which will be discontinued soon. And I'm not sure how I should behave in the workplace. Like, I know there are explicit workplace rules, but there are also implicit workplace rules. And he unfortunately said that they were fired on the third week during their previous job without any warning.
Oh no.
And they just said that they were a bad fit. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on, how people should act in the workplace? Should you be kind of tight with people? Should you kind of draw the line somewhere?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for the workplace, it's like a minefield, right? You don't know where you should step, and what you do has consequences. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. So I think it is a lot. I'm wondering what the rest of the feed is saying. How did the other Redditors respond to this?
Well, there were a lot of different viewpoints. So one person did say that you have to observe the people and culture in the first few months.
Okay.
When you just join during your probation period, it's not just probation for you, it's probation for whether you want to stay in that company or not.
I see.
Yeah. So be careful about overly friendly colleagues who constantly buy gifts and food for others, colleagues who gossip, colleagues who are close with your boss and have many private closed-door chats with your managers, and colleagues who raise their voice when you ask too many questions or start adding fuel to the fire when you've made mistakes.
Well, that seems like a very wide range, right?
Yeah.
You got really nice people in there, like people who are friendly. I'm wondering why must we be careful of them?
Right? Like, so I don't understand. If people buy you gifts, buy you food, take lah. Make friends with them, right?
unless they
Have ulterior motives.
yes,
Yeah.
which honestly I'm struggling to see what those motives are. I mean, you can
Maybe their motive is to make friends, right? I don't know.
maybe they really want to be your friend, right? So that's why they buy food and they treat you for lunch and things like that. But maybe I don't know, the feeling of feeling indebted. Yeah, like you feel like you have to give in to that person. Later on, the person comes to you with a work request, like, can you cover for me for this thing? Or can you help me to do this part? Because
you help me cover me for one day because I gave you donut every day for the past week.
you fed me well. You fed me very well, so I'll do the work, yes.
Yeah. So, but how do you figure out these dynamics quickly? Because the advice here was like the first few months, right? You
Yeah.
observe. What would you say are some things that people should look out for among people, aside from the things that this commenter listed out?
Do people do discussions, or is it just like radio silence, kind of a workplace, only the sounds of clicking keyboards? And that will kind of makes us know how to respond as well, how to behave and integrate. I mean, I don't think you would start to shoot out your mouth in a very loud way in a very quiet room, right? We also observe how they interact with one another. All right, and where discussions, where problems are being solved, how they are being solved. All of these things requires us to analyze, because when we are going into the job, it's not just about us doing the work, but it's who we work with as well, how we work with them.
Yeah. But I wonder, right, if I have started to identify maybe a couple of these, let's call them bad apples, right? These toxic people in the workplace. Is my only solution or my only way to keep sane in the workplace to avoid these people entirely?
I think especially for the first few weeks or first few months, even as you join into the company, maybe don't be so quick to write off people or to label people that way. Get to know them, because you start to realize that actually in the workplace, people all put certain masks. They behave in a certain way that they maybe is for coping or for survival
Yeah.
to get ahead. And maybe personally, they're not like that.
Yeah.
So learn to observe and then really test some of these assumptions and observations that you have had to determine whether this person is safe or whether it's out to harm you. I see the workplace as just basically a group of people that is there to work, and that there are just some people who are out to be a nuisance, or
Make things
to
difficult.
make things difficult for other people.
Yeah.
I just see them like that. I don't have specific categories of people.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
How about you?
Well, I mean, I've worked in different places where there was a different mix of these kind of people, right? There are some workplaces where everybody felt like, you could kind of get along with them because that organization, they hired very much for culture. In terms of the technical work or your capabilities, they believe you can pick this up on the job. But what matters most is that you are a pleasant person to work with, right? But I've also worked in places where they hire purely for aptitude, and you can tell that there are people who you talk to them the first time you try to introduce yourself and they already become very standoffish, or they've become very territorial. Why are you encroaching into my scope of work? Like, are you trying to upstage me? And at that moment, I'm just thinking, like, who hurt you? Like, why is the first instance of me coming to you feeling like a threat for you?
I think that's a really good example, right? That you fleshed out like two different workplaces. One where people, it feels like almost like family, very nice, and then another for very achievement centric, and people are very cautious. Even in that kind of the second environment that you mentioned, right? Is it necessarily bad?
Well, to be fair, it did foster a culture of excellence, right? But to me, because even myself, I left that place after a very short span of time, it didn't foster longevity in the talent, right? So people may go there, and if they succeed, they may stay for the next year or the next contract, but it felt like there was a very high turnover rate whenever somebody got surpassed, in a sense. So I don't know. I believe in a workplace that fosters longevity in its talent, because the workplace is what it is because of the people there.
Yes. I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And yet there are people who may see that the second workplace to be more suitable for them. If today I'm a person who's a lot more achievement centric. I prefer to work alone. I'm not that collaborative, and maybe the work role itself is very sales driven, for example, right? Then I can work silo, and that's where I may find myself to really be prioritizing work by myself. I don't have to collaborate with people. I don't really need that kind of social family kind of interactions,
Right.
And that could be the right environment for me. There are different environments, and there are also different people. If we understand the kind of environments that will bring out the best in us, maybe we will also learn that it's not like one environment's bad or one environment's good, but it's just which one helps us to generate our potential more. Which one is a better fit for us?
Okay, we've talked a little bit about the red flags, right? The how to identify the toxic people, the bad apples in the workplace. How about the good people? How do you identify your clan or the people that you should be sticking with to ensure that your time in this company or your time in that role is at least enjoyable?
Yeah, I think this is a good time to talk about lunch.
Yes.
Like
okay.
lunch meals or tea breaks, right? Lunchtime was the time for me to choose the people I like to be with,
Okay.
to eat lunch,
Yeah.
right? Because it's the only time in the day of the work day where you get to choose really how you want to spend the time.
True.
Yeah. The rest of the time is work calls, duty calls. Yeah. And I feel like that's if the people reciprocate, if they also go out to eat lunch with you, and then you have great lunch conversations, then maybe you start to realize that this relationship, this friendship you have may just be just that little bit more than just colleagues. I don't know. But what about for you?
Well, I mean, that is one way, those organic meetups where everyone is on break at the same time, right? So why not have that break together to not talk about the impending deadlines or the massive amount of projects that we're working on? Why not just talk about, what was the latest thing you've been watching on Netflix?
Yes.
Where did you go on holiday recently?
Yes.
Where are you planning to go on your next leave?
Family problems even. Some of them talk family
some
problems.
people do. But I'm glad you brought that up, because there are some people on this thread who actually say you should be wary of bringing your true self to work. Right? So this commenter says, currently doing a people-facing role. So I'm pretty much forced to come out of my comfort zone. But I treat my work like a performance. It's all about acting, putting up a friendly, approachable front. I was insanely anxious at first, but with more exposure, I've kind of grown numb. So they feel like they can't bring who they really are into their role, and they are putting up this persona, right? And so I wonder, is that healthy?
Yeah.
Because you do spend a lot of time at work, so should you be doing this?
In the work day of 8 hours, 10 hours, you get to be, at certain moments, you get to be more of yourself. At certain moments, you can be less of yourself, right? But if today, I'm just reading what you just said, it's like this person wants to keep everything of themselves away from work. I mean, I personally, I don't think that that's going to be healthy in the long run,
Right.
and that's only because after a while, you're going to realize that you're giving the best time of your life, the best hours of a day, towards something that does not give back to you personally, right? And after a while, you're just going to realize that, is it worth it?
It's almost like they are isolating their so-called true self for after 6 p.m. and weekends only.
Yeah.
And during the bulk of the week, they're not acting like they truly want to be.
If today that work doesn't quite fit, then how do we balance it up? How do we find a way to maximize the utility of our time at work? I always see that the workplace is like, let's say, one it's one environment that we are in, and we also have what we want, right?
Yeah.
So at best, we have to try to forge some kind of overlap between that two as much as possible. Keeping them apart after a long time, right, it will just make you resent work a lot more. So if we can find if we are able to kind of adapt and bring the work and ourselves closer together, and that's where you start to see that maybe the work gives to you, and you're also able to give to the workplace a lot more. And this also includes, of course, the people at the workplace as well.
Right.
If today they are part of why you do what you do, and it's just an extension of doing great work, right? When you are with the right team.
Yeah. But there are some people, who might argue that they have to put on a persona when they're, like, during working hours,
Yes.
right? Because managers, bosses, they're all only human, and they will gravitate towards a certain type of person. So is it so wrong for me to be putting on a front to the end of trying to get my boss to like me more, so that come pay revision period, it's an easier negotiation, perhaps?
Yeah. I think we have to look at it from the organization, right? They have expectations, their goals and their objectives from the organization. And as employees, we have to, if today we want to survive, we want to progress, it's a requirement that we move along those expectations. But that's the point I was bringing earlier, right? How far do you move along to the point that you don't lose yourself?
Yeah.
And that's the balance that we need to have. We have to ask ourselves over and over again, because sometimes it could be that you think that that's the right place for you, and you can, but after a while, as you progress in your life, you realize that that's not what you want, and things change. You have to realize and review quickly enough to say that, okay, this is not working out. I need to go back and take stock of what's truly important and look for maybe something that fits better. We are so inclined to wanting to stay in the comfort zone, to find something that fits, and hopefully it doesn't change. But in reality, things always change. And it's not just the workplace changing, it's we are also changing. So I think we have to be aware of, like, how are we feeling about our work, and not just about me, like how I'm feeling, but also looking at the workplace itself, the requirements. The organization exists to survive because of profit, right?
Yeah.
So we also have to see how we can value add to them, so that it's a win-win.
I want to talk about the other side of things. People who are entirely themselves and potentially might be oversharing a little bit when in conversations with their colleagues. So this comment, another one on the thread, said, here's a simple mantra: don't overshare at the workplace. Don't add colleagues to your private social media. Don't talk bad about others. And then someone else said, do not share any details about your personal life, especially health issues.
Okay.
So what's your take on this? I mean, I know now that I can follow you on Instagram, but how much would you consider oversharing? How much would you consider too many details?
Yeah. For me, social media, it's whatever I post on social media is something that I find acceptable to the whole world.
Okay.
So that's totally okay. So there's no hiding. But sometimes people really look at social media as personal, meaning that they put their deepest, darkest thoughts on there.
Okay.
And then maybe if that's the case, then maybe it's better to curate who you add on to your list, right? I'm sure you've heard of situations before where people get fired for what they post on social media.
Yeah.
I met someone before who commented on like what's been happening at work, and yep, the person was not renewed.
I don't want to sound mean, but kind of asking for it, right? If you're putting on blast to the world, if your profile's not private, why are you putting sensitive information on there in the first place?
This person, that this specific example I recall, it set in my mind because the person was really careful at curating, but still the word got out. So that means somebody who was in the person's network told the person's boss that, hey, this person is posting these things about work.
Yeah.
And then that affected the person's appraisal.
Actually, this reminds me of one of my friends who might have gotten on the wrong side of this situation, right? They considered another colleague who just happened to be their manager as a friend, right? Outside of work hours, they would hang out, they would have dinner together, they would get drinks. And this manager, this quote-unquote friend, used these chats outside of work to justify letting go of my friend.
Oh no.
Justify saying like, hey, I mean, you shared to me before that you're not quite happy here. I think it's better if you just go lah. So I'm almost like saying, hey, I'm doing you a favor by letting you go.
Oh wow.
So
okay. How did your friend take it?
He did not take it well. Like the friendship was over in that meeting, like before the meeting was over. And to my knowledge, until now, he hasn't forgiven that manager, that friend.
It sounds like betrayal.
It is, yeah. I mean, I would say it's betrayal. But also, was it very, I don't know, smart of him to be talking so much about how he feels about work to his friend who is his manager?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, like that incident, when my friend told me about that, it got me very wary about how I present myself to my manager.
Yes.
No matter how close I feel with them.
I think there's wisdom in when you call someone boss. I think there must be certain boundaries that you have to set for yourself. You know, don't steer clear of certain things, of maybe how you really feel. And really check in the reaction of your boss.
Yeah. But I wonder, right? Sometimes I am thinking like, how do I find that line in the sand? Because sometimes there are things I just want to tell my boss because they seem so friendly, right? And they seem like they get me on a certain level. But then I think about it, would they think of me differently if I told them this anecdote or this story, or if I said this joke?
Yeah.
Like, how do I know that this is the kind of person I can confide in? Or should I really just not be talking to my boss in that manner?
I mean, for me, one guiding principle that I always think about whether I want to disclose or say something to my boss is whether I put myself in my boss' shoe. And I ask myself, is it helpful for me to hear this? Like, for me, sharing certain things, would it make my boss's job easier or harder?
Right.
And if it's harder, if it's going to make it more uncomfortable for my boss, then maybe I shouldn't say it.
I guess it's kind of a make the judgment call situation.
Yes. If your boss chooses to confide in you, right, then that's a different case.
Right.
Like your boss can say whatever he or she wants to say, but because you're not in the position to do anything to your boss, you see. But if today the roles are a bit reversed, then unfortunately you just have to have that boundary.
Right. So it's actually good that we're talking about bosses, because there was a comment here about navigating leadership, right? So this commenter classifies bosses into two different buckets, right? The authority type and the empowerment type. And you can figure it out by asking questions. So they say the authority type boss will fold their arms, raise their voice, and show displeasure when being questioned. So the strategy to deal with them, be a yes man. Then the empowerment type boss, they will admit that they aren't sure very openly, teach you if they know, or ask you to look for answers yourself. So the way to deal with them, or the way to get on their good side, is to show them you're eager to learn and keep asking good questions. Do you agree that it is so straightforward that there are two types of bosses in the workplace, and this is how you can identify and deal with them?
I think I've seen more than these two types.
Okay.
For yourself?
I mean, people are not monoliths, right? They can be different people depending on the day.
Yes.
I've had great bosses who are very personable, who on the wrong day, you do not want to have even a lunch conversation with them. Well, on the other side of things, like bosses who are usually unapproachable, on a good day, you feel like you can actually tell them anything.
I think when we look at our bosses, we have to, I don't know about you, but when I was working in previous companies, we always say, how's the weather?
Oh,
right,
okay.
with the boss. So we kind of figure out like if today we want to get something done and the weather is not good,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe we should hold off, right?
Okay.
So I think that's part of reading the room, reading
Yeah.
the situation, and it's part and parcel of the workplace, the dynamics, right? We have to remember that our bosses are also human beings. I
That's
like
right.
what you said earlier, that there are days that they could be a certain way, maybe not the most positive examples of being a boss, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And this is where we give and take. Just like how we ourselves are not optimally performing every single day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting because I've had at least one stint where I've been the boss myself, right? And really seeing things from that perspective, I respond to the same message very differently depending on my disposition at the moment, right? Sometimes it's a small issue and I can recognize it's a small issue, but emotions flare first and I have to almost physically stop myself from reacting. And then on a different day, I can see that message and be like, hey, okay, no big deal. So it really is true that, you have to see your bosses as human, like the same that we are, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to really treating them as this like higher being or anything like that.
And also, I think we also have to see ourselves as working in a team with the boss.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't assume that how the boss is and then we just give the boss what they want. Sometimes we do have to pick our boss out of the hole if they're making a mistake, for example. And it's really for the team to communicate and to help the boss recognize, right, in the way that he or she can understand that, look, certain things have to be done differently. And this is the beauty of working in teams, right? Having
Right.
people to look out for one another. If your boss is making a big mistake and you know this is going to cost down the road, right? And you are going to have to be on picking up the pieces. I think it's better for you to start to let your boss know,
Right.
right? So I think when we are working with bosses, I think it's important that, yes, we look at the weather, we look at how they're behaving, and we try to help them to do the right thing, work with them to do the right thing that's best interest for the company.
Right.
Yeah.
But I wonder, in the situation that you have a boss who maybe is not quite your style, how much should you be changing yourself to adapt to that boss's, let's say, preferences?
Wow. Okay. I think it's a mixed bag.
Uh-huh.
It's a mixed bag because when we say change ourselves,
Yeah.
sometimes there is the amount of flex or buffer for us to adapt, but there are also limits.
Okay.
And I certainly wouldn't want someone, I wouldn't advise someone to go beyond those limits, right? Just to conform, right? Because I've seen before people who really resent their bosses, but they still are in the job, and they're miserable. And there are better ways. Work shouldn't be like this, lah.
But how do I identify those limits in myself? Like, because I assume it's different for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So how do I know that I'm hitting a limit? I shouldn't, give in too much more.
When we are realizing our limits is if today the pattern it's clear, like for example there's a repeated pattern of something keep reoccurring over and over again, then we may know that, okay, this person, this work environment may not be the most suitable for me, right? But at the same time we also wonder, like, am I quitting too soon? Sometimes we wonder, like, is it me or is it the workplace? Is it me? And this type of second guessing, we may have to take it further back into our career history, and we have to see, has this been recurring even in past jobs? If today you start to realize that every workplace you end up feeling the same way and it's with different bosses, then you start to wonder, like, okay, it's maybe something that I have to deal with and I have to learn and grow through it, rather than run away and change in hope of another place, because every workplace is imperfect. There's no perfect workplace.
So I'm glad you said that you gotta take the good with the bad.
Yes.
But at what point should you decide the opposite of what you advise? When can you know that this workplace isn't for you and you really have to take yourself out of a potentially toxic situation for the betterment of your mental health?
Mental health is one big one, like you said.
Yeah.
If today you're not eating well, you're not sleeping well, and you are crying at meetings. I've seen that before, right? Crying at meetings, and I think that's a serious sign for you to take a pause and to reflect on what's really happening. Maybe that work environment really isn't the right place for you. Maybe it's you are not the right person for that workplace because you've been carrying certain things in your life and you need to deal with them first, right? Other than that, I think don't rage quit.
Okay.
I feel don't rage quit and give yourself some time, especially if you are new to the environment. When someone joins in a company for the first time, some adjustment is needed to get in touch with the workplace culture And I don't know whether people these days are getting more impatient. They just want to quit very quickly. And I feel like that shouldn't be the case.
Right. So
Give yourself,
really put thought into what you're doing, kind of weigh maybe the pros and cons. Do a little like writing exercise of why you should do it versus why you shouldn't do it.
yes. And I think don't live in your own echo chamber. Don't live in your own mind, right? But like speak to somebody like a friend
Who can be neutral, importantly,
yes,
right?
neutral, very
Yeah.
important. I think you need some people you can trust who you allow to speak into your life, right? To tell you that actually maybe something is not quite right with the way you think. I think having this sort of people around you is really, really helpful so that you get a more objective view of things.
Well, I think this is a good place to end this conversation. Very interesting things in this thread, Gerald.
Indeed.
So, for all of you listening or watching, if you want to get in touch with us, you can just comment wherever you're listening from. Let us know your thoughts, or you can write to us at cnapodcast@mediacorp.com.sg.
I'm Gerald.
And I'm Nat. Connect with intention, but don't be afraid to protect your space.